The home gym has reopened, which is good news. They finally fixed the floor, so they brought all the weight back in, and it's finally usable to the full extent of the equipment that it can provide. So I started up with some weighted stuff. The first exercise in the program would be a weighted chin-up, so that's exactly what I did. The only thing is that I wasn't going as heavy as in the past. I noticed that I kind of ended up stalling at 24 kilos, 4 reps, and I thought that since I have not done this in about a month, weighted, it was probably a good idea to just ramp up to a weight that I could perform for about 5 reps for a couple of sets, staying relatively close to failure, and just not go any further up. So I will be staying again at 20 kilos the next time that I'm doing these, and slowly progress, maybe add a third set at some point before I move up in weight again. I'd rather take it a bit slower than end up stalling, because I have not been treating the weighted pull-ups with the same respect as I am right now the squats and other weighted exercises. And then I was getting into this superset for the hip work. So I was doing some cable knee drives, followed by these floor thrusts. It was a good name that was brought up in the comments a while back. And these are drills that are mainly designed to help me breaking the act of running down to its most basic components, and if I can load that up with some cable, I will do that. But the floor thrust, there isn't really any other way than doing them against the wall. So I'm able to put my body in a position that simulates where I would be in the initial driving phase of a sprint, so at a bit of an angle. And I was changing a little bit the placement of my feet, especially the foot that's staying on the floor. There is no point in making an effort to make sure that it makes full contact with the ground, because in the act of running, it isn't really recommended that the foot strikes the ground with the heel. It usually ends up being at a midfoot, sometimes a bit more on the toes. It doesn't seem to be very recommended, but every sprinter that I've seen, most of them end up striking the first few steps more on the toes than on the ball of the foot, on the midfoot. But they end up tapering that down as they progressively rise up throughout the driving phase. So in here, I was mainly focused on keeping the hips fully extended, and then just forcefully pull my knees up. And I'm noticing that I have a tendency of letting the foot go forward instead of driving the knee up, which should actually reduce the distance between the point where the foot makes contact and when it's at its highest elevation. And this exercise is more tailored to the other end of the sprinting the striking part. So that was a bit more of a focus, but something to keep in mind. Then I moved over to Nordic curls. In here, I was doing the usual progression with sets. So I was doing 4 reps in the first set, and then I did 5 in the following one. And I kept the sets at 2 for this week. Shame that the previous week the footage was lost. I may have deleted it by mistake. That was kind of annoying. So the previous week I did 3 sets, and I feel like if I am bouncing between 2 and 3 sets week by week, and hopefully maybe adding 1 rep every week or so. So the week that I'm doing 2 sets only, I can try and push a bit higher intensity, maybe go for an extra repetition on the second set. And then the following week is going to be a bit more of a volume week, where I keep my reps in reserve to 1, maybe even 2. And so long as I can do 3 to 5 repetitions on 3 sets, I should be able to accrue enough volume. And then the following week after that, I will try and push 1 more repetition for the first set and maybe keep the second one at the same level, so that I can progress repetitions, adding 1 rep every 2 weeks or so, and still get some volume in the week where I'm doing a bit more sets. I think they were looking okay. They were definitely feeling good. Maybe this angle is not really showing. It's showing a bit more hip flexion that I feel like I was having. This was also the second set. On the last few repetitions, there usually tends to be a bit of an adjustment. The body tries to cheat its way into making them slightly easier. I think that the best solution to that is just going to be increasing repetitions over time and be able to sustain more volume. At that point, if I end up being able to do 8 to 10 repetitions, for sure, if I try to do 1 set of 3 to 5, I should be able to maintain a bit more hip extension throughout those repetitions, because I have a higher work capacity on that. And then it was time for some elbow work. So I was supersetting the usual curls to the Nordics, and I finally had access to dumbbells again. Maybe a slight mistake that I've made was to go back up to 16 kilos per dumbbell, which is the way that I was doing before the gym got stripped of its equipment. And I probably should have done something more similar to the weighted chin-ups, where I only went to a weight that was just under what I was doing before. I stopped doing them consistently because I was feeling like they were a bit harder. I mean, slightly harder than I remember them anyways. And the last one was a finisher set of sorts with cables. I think that these should stay at least as a finisher, if not as a variation. Let's see. Ciao.